Hi everyone, welcome to the second part. Yay! My name is Ijeoma Ucheibe and I talk about HR related content and its intersection with the law under the Nigerian HR Chic Series with me. So the last time I spoke about this in the first part of the video, I gave a little background to the dispute in question, which was the fact that a member of the Nigerian Army, in this person named Captain Benedict Olusoji, had sued the Nigerian Army essentially for wrongful termination of employment, and then the lower court had given a judgment in his favor and asked his employer at the time, Nigerian Army, to pay him damages in the sum of 75 million naira. So there was a bit of a back and forth in that first video where I talked about the fact that the Nigerian Army had appealed the judgment and claimed that because they had placed an appeal in the case, that they were not liable to execute the judgment of paying the judgment creditor, who in this case is Captain Benedict Olusoji, the sum of 75 million naira. And in that video, I talked briefly about two issues, which was the fact that does an appeal prevent the enforcement of a garnish order? I talked about the meaning of a garnish order, and then the second issue was the fact that the judgment creditor, who in this case is Captain Benedict Olusoji, followed the right procedure to obtain that garnish order. We'll find out shortly. So the second part of this video, and permit me to say, if you're joining this channel for the first time, we're eating good these days. My name is Ijeoma. I try to break down issues that affect HR professionals in a very simplified way. I offer tips when necessary, and I rely most times on my personal experiences, so that way it gives a flavor of experience and expertise and how I've been able to navigate some of these situations. So this is the second part of the series where I discuss a judgment from the National Industrial Courts of Nigeria on this channel. So welcome, and I wanted to just give a background to the first video. So the second part is, now we're looking at the garnishi applicants. Now, because the central bank was brought into this dispute, not by a choice of theirs, they are now coming in to say, hey, I get that we are garnishi applicants, but again, we are saying one of the reasons why we don't think we should be executing this judgment of paying this person 75 million is two main reasons, and one of them was missing consent and then wrong venue. So by missing consent, they said that no consent was obtained by or from the Attorney General of the Federation before initiation of the garnishi proceedings as required by Section 84 of the Sheriffs and Civil Process Act, which is the SCPA, and that this makes the proceedings null and void. Now, someone that doesn't quite understand this, you're watching and sitting in court, hearing this argument go on, the first thing that turns your head is like, oh my God, this lawyer is trying to be smart. But what we do is most times we rely on evidence. We rely on case law of matters that have been decided in this nature. So CBN is coming in to say, hey, I get that you have a dispute. I don't really care so much whether this person appealing is going to stay the execution of the judgment that you have obtained from the lower court. We are saying one of the main things that this court is supposed to get is consent to even initiate a garnishi proceedings against us. So you don't wake up one day and say, only because we are a government agency. So it's almost like the same way you do it for other banks, that doesn't really apply to us, right? And then I think that's where the first issue they had, and why they said the court lacked jurisdiction, and why they didn't think to be involved in this case. And the second one was the issue of wrong venue. They said that since CBN was an agency of the government, the Federal High Court has exclusive jurisdiction. Don't get me started on that. And they quoted Section 251, subsection 1, paragraph D of the Federal, the Constitution, 1999 Constitution as amended, and Order 8th of the judgments in bracket enforcement rules. Don't worry, I don't need to bore you, but these are laws that they relied on to say this is why we think the National Industrial Court, in this instance, lacks jurisdiction to even try or initiate a garnishee proceeding against us as garnishee applicants to settle the judgment sum against the judgment debtor. So they came in with those two issues. And then the judgment creditor, of course, this is a back and forth now. Judgment creditor is like, no, I disagree with your lack of judgment argument, only in the sense that, number one, there are three issues. There's the subject matter in question, there is the court jurisdiction, there's also National Industrial Court as a court of competent jurisdiction, especially when it comes to employment disputes. So I'm going to read the first one. Now, for subject matter, they argued that the garnishee proceedings, subject matter was to enforce a judgment, not the activities of the CBN. So, hey, I'm the judgment creditor here. At the risk of sounding insensitive, I don't really care about what you do in CBN. I just want my money. So don't come and lecture me on your activities. I don't know so much about your activities. We are just here for you to enforce a judgment, which is 75 million naira coming to me. I don't care so much about what goes on in CBN or what I need to do. Which someone might find a bit, okay, bro, you have been told that before we can even do this, these are the steps that you need to take. The court or you in question has to ask the CBN, seek its permission, and then internally we decide, okay, are we willing to be attached in a garnishee order to offset or settle the judgment sum of 75 million naira against the judgment creditor, in this case, the Nigerian Army. So that's an argument for another day. And then the second one is, this court that issued this original judgment has jurisdiction for both the garnishee orders, garnishee proceedings, only because it is for enforcement of that judgment. I hope you understand this so far. And that regardless of the garnishee being a government agency, they issued the judgment. Because that garnishee proceeding is for the execution of that judgment, they also have the right to do that. And then that's where the second, and I think the issues arose. So one part is saying, oh, before this can happen, this has to happen. Oh, it's the wrong venue. We feel that the only court that has jurisdiction over us is Federal High Court. And the other person is saying, oh, excuse me, we are talking about my money. I don't care so much about how you do things in CBN. Secondly, this court that issued the judgment in the first instance is a competent court of jurisdiction to try employment disputes. So you can't come and tell me, oh, all that argument about wrong venue and all that. That's your business. And third, but most importantly, the jurisdiction of the Nigerian National Industrial Court was established by the Constitution, which is a ground norm. I will talk about that. I'm trying not to go into legalese so much in this video. And the National Industrial Court Act, which states that the court is appropriate for enforcing judgment related to, like I keep saying, employment disputes. So, do you see how this is very, I don't know how to say it, it's very interesting times, only because it is exhausting for you who is not a lawyer sitting through those kind of proceedings and wondering. It's almost like you're tempted to stand up and be like, the court, I want you to hold for this person. But at the end of the day, we always rely on evidence and we rely on case law. We rely on case law only because, oh, this thing might have been decided in another time, in 2 years ago, 3 years ago. How was it decided? How is it so different from what it is before the court? And then both parties, of course, referenced case law. Reference case law meaning they use cases that have been decided either on this matter or something relating to this matter, where you have someone like, the garnishee applicant, in this case CBN, was citing cases where consent from the Attorney General was required, and that CBN is considered a public officer for garnishee proceedings. Still, what I'm talking about is like, okay, we get it. We need to get a consent from the Attorney General, telling the Attorney General that we need to attach CBN as a garnishee applicant to get our money. facts is there stated in the act. But then again, in this case, this other part of the pie is the judgment creditor saying, oh, I can also cite cases where the subject matter of the garnishee proceeding in this case determines the court's jurisdiction, what's the subject matter, and implements dispute, which was wrongful termination of employment, which is what decided by the National Industrial Court of Nigeria. So in his case, the Captain Benedict Olusoji, he is thinking, I am the one that got the judgment. Which court decided this judgment? Because it was wrongful termination of employment. National Industrial Court. So they have jurisdiction to initiate the garnishee order. So it was a bit of back and forth. I can imagine the lawyers that were involved in this. But overall, what I'm going to say is, this argument revolves around whether the lack of consent and then CBN's status as a government agency, having to get consent of the Attorney General and blah, 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 deprives the courts of jurisdiction in this case for the garnishee proceedings. I will leave you to argue that in the comment section because it's interesting times. This case was so exciting. By the time I was done reading the 32-page judgment, I knew I had to start off with Captain Olusoji's matter, and I'm glad I did. Before we get to the last part, which is the third part of this video, where I will talk a lot more about the judgment, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn, where I tend to just talk about what I know, about the law, about HR, and what I do for a living at IU Advisory Services. But most importantly, let me know what you thought about today's video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, stream, and then I'll be talking about this on the Nigerian HR Chic podcast shortly. But it's also going to be like a 3-part series, not as short as I wanted to be, because I always want to get my audience to understand where I'm coming from. But a lot of the legalese on the talking. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about today's video, and don't forget to come back for the last part that I will get into very shortly. Bye guys.